Welcome to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, let's discuss Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, No Quarter. This album was released in 1994. It was a pretty hyped up and talked about reunion of Jimmy Page, Robert Plant. Of course, John Bonham not with us anymore, and John Paul Jones wasn't involved in this, so it isn't Led Zeppelin, but to get Page and Plant together, it's pretty exciting. And it's a live album taken from performances at MTV's Unplugged, which was entitled Unleaded, and also live performances in Morocco, Wales, and London. There's 4 newly written songs on this album, and the rest are reworkings of Led Zeppelin classics with a Moroccan string band and Egyptian orchestra. It is a very interesting album. I don't remember the MTV Unleaded thing. This, I think, happened when I was living without a TV for a few years, so I must have just totally missed out on it. And sometimes in situations like this, those MTV Unplugged things can sometimes be disappointing when all the band does is basically play the songs on acoustic instruments. And the same thing when orchestras are sometimes involved. They can also be disappointing when all it turns out to be is the band playing the songs and the orchestra just not really adding anything to it, just playing along. But that's not the case here. They take a lot of the old Led Zeppelin classics and they really rework them with this Moroccan and Egyptian orchestra to give it this Middle Eastern sound. It's something that I love. I love the sound of the scales and the tonalities and everything that they use with the instruments over there, with these orchestras. The hand drums and everything really add a lot to these songs, and it sort of gives you a different perspective on these songs. You know, a great song is a great song, and it doesn't matter how it's done. When it's a good song, it comes across that way, and this really shows here. And it really feels like, although you would like John Paul Jones to have been involved, it feels like Page and Plant here are really inspired by this whole thing, working with these unique musicians. Jimmy Page, one great side of his playing was always his acoustic playing, with his open tunings on his guitar and everything, and the folk and Celtic influences that he brought into the band. So it isn't too big of a stretch to think that this is something that Jimmy Page would be interested in doing. But it just feels like they're inspired here, and they're just having fun with this. And it sounds great, and there's some really cool stuff on here. So I mentioned that there's 4 new songs that they wrote for this. Only 3 of them are on the particular CD version that I have, and those are Yala, which you may have seen the video. There was a video for that song from here where they're out in like a public square, and there's all these people playing the percussion instruments. And Jimmy Page has some, I have no idea what it is. If you know, let me know in the comments. This box that he's like pulling this lever back and forth. It sounds like it's making his guitar cut in and out and stuff. It's just really, I have no idea what it is, but it sounds really, really cool. He's playing like this power chord riff through most of the song, and Page is wailing up high. Plant, he's wailing up high there with his voice, and he sounds great. On some of the older songs, he does duck in and out of some of the more upper range type stuff, but it still sounds really, really good. City Don't Cry, that's another original one, and it's got this it's a kind of a mellow, laid back type of one with like a nice rhythm going on underneath it. Wonderful One is another original one that's really cool. And there's a lot of in these songs too that you hear these unique instruments sort of coming through. And I know there's like this, sounds like a bass guitar sort of, but it's this different type of sound to it that's really interesting. The song that's not on my CD is called Wah Wah, and you can find that on YouTube. And it's a cool one. It's, again, another sort of laid back one. Unfortunately, this isn't on any of the streaming services, but you can hear it on YouTube, and I'm sure you can still pick it up used, or it may even still be in print, for all I know. All right, you get a lot of songs from Led Zeppelin 3 because that was their most acoustic album, but you get a little sprinkling here and there from almost all the other records. For instance, it starts with Nobody's Fault But Mine. This is one that I really like. They completely changed this. Whereas on the Presence album, it's got a heavy guitar riff to it. Here, I think it's like hurdy-gurdy or something, like one of those, you crank, those wind up like medieval instruments, and it's got a just laid back, totally different feel to it, but it just completely works. Really, really cool. Some of them are a little more closer to their originals, like they do Thank You from Led Zeppelin 2, and that's pretty kind of straight like the original. They do No Quarter from Houses of the Holy. That's done completely different. It's like this effect on Robert's voice, and there's almost no rhythm underneath it, and it gets already a song that's kind of atmospheric and creepy, and this just gives it a whole different mood, which I really like. Friends is much like the Led Zeppelin 3 version. Since I've Been Loving You, Jimmy breaks out the electric guitar for this one and shows you that what an amazing blues player he is. This is kind of a minor blues song, and he really stretches out on it, which is awesome. The Battle of Evermore is super cool. They have a female vocalist in there doing that vocal part. That's the Way, Gallows Pole, Four Sticks. It sounds amazing on here because they add all this percussion to it. It's already a rhythmic song, but then it just gets taken to another level with all the extra percussion. And then it ends with Kashmir, and Kashmir is already an epic song, and here it clocks in at 12.5 minutes. I'm not sure how long that is compared to the original. But with this Moroccan and Egyptian orchestra in here, playing all these lines and stuff like that. And there's a spot where everybody drops out and the orchestra plays, and Page even goes and sort of quotes little snippets of different Led Zeppelin riffs on the electric guitar. It's just really cool, and it takes the song. It takes the song to kind of a new place, which I think is really awesome. And I think that that's what is really cool about this whole album is that it takes these classic songs and it brings them to a new place. It makes you sort of appreciate it again in a different light. It's like you're seeing these songs from a different angle or something with all these unique instruments and everything. It's a great headphone listen to hear all this stuff. And again, it just it sounds like Page and Plant are really inspired by the whole thing. So this is an album I haven't listened to in a really long time, and I remember being really excited when this came out, and because I wasn't really much of a fan of a lot of the other things that Jimmy Page had done after Led Zeppelin, like The Firm, and that never really did anything for me. So I was really hoping that they would continue with this. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case, but as it stands, it's a really awesome CD, and if you haven't listened to it in a while, break it out again and check it out. If you haven't heard it, pick it up somewhere or check it out on YouTube. I think you'll find some really cool stuff there. Okay, so let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this album. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Until we see you again, make sure you rock hard, ride free.